Before we begin, a quick warning. The following story contains disturbing events. Viewer discretion's advised. I'll never forgive myself. Every Christmas I hang Emma's stocking by the fireplace, clinging to the faint hope that she'll come home. But deep down, I know the truth. She's gone, and I have no one to blame but myself. I thought taking that job would make her Christmas special. I never imagined the price I'd pay for that decision. If I'd seen the signs earlier, if I'd acted sooner, maybe things would be different. But now, all I have are unanswered questions, and one horrifying memory that refuses to fade. It all started as a desperate attempt to make my daughter smile. At 6, Emma was full of wonder and believed wholeheartedly in the magic of Christmas. But after my divorce, money was tight, and the holiday season had lost its sparkle. The disappointment in her eyes crushed me. So when I saw an ad for a seasonal mall Santa, I applied without hesitation. The pay was terrible, the hours unbearable, and the suit reeked of stale sweat. But when Emma's face lit up after I promised Santa would bring her something special this year, I knew it was worth it. I didn't realize the true cost of that promise, or how high a price I would pay. First week of the job was chaotic but uneventful. Crying toddlers, screaming kids, and exhausted parents snapping photos. It was exhausting, but normal. Then I noticed him. A man, maybe in his 40s, stood at the edge of the crowd. He didn't have any kids with him and wasn't taking pictures. He was just watching, smiling. I dismissed it, thinking he was waiting for someone. But the next day, he was there again, in the exact same spot. And the day after that. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe he was just an awkward guy who enjoyed people watching. But there was something about his smile that unsettled me, like he knew something I didn't. One night after work, I saw him again in the parking lot. He stood a few paces away from my car, staring at me. He didn't move, didn't speak, just smiled. My chest tightened as I hurried to my car, locking the doors as soon as I got inside. I checked my mirrors constantly in the drive home, but his car didn't follow. Still, the image of his face haunted me. 2 days later, I came home to find a package on my doorstep. It was wrapped in cheap Christmas paper with no name or return address. Inside was a stuffed bear, the same one Emma had been admiring at the mall toy store earlier that week. At first, I thought it might have been a kind gesture from a neighbor or coworker. But the longer I stared at the bear, the more uneasy I felt. I didn't tell Emma. There was no point in scaring her. Then, 2 nights later, another package arrived. This one was on my bed. My stomach dropped. I knew I hadn't left it there. My hands shook as I unwrapped it, revealing a Santa hat and a note. The words were scrawled in shaky, childlike handwriting. "You're doing such a great job. Can't wait to meet her soon." Panic surged through me. I sprinted to Emma's room, my heart hammering. There she was, sleeping peacefully. Relief washed over me, but it was fleeting. Someone had been in my house. This time I didn't hesitate. I called the police. The officers arrived quickly and took the note seriously. They searched the house but found no signs of forced entry. No fingerprints. Nothing. One officer suggested it could have been a prank, but I knew better. "Someone's watching us," I said, my voice trembling. "He's been at the mall every day. He knows about my daughter." They promised to increase patrols in the neighborhood and told me to stay vigilant. That night, I barely slept. I sat in the hallway with a knife, watching Emma's door. Christmas Eve passed uneventfully, though tension hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. I triple-checked the locks, bolted the windows, and stayed up until dawn, nerves frayed. By Christmas morning, I let myself believe we were safe. Emma's laughter filled the house as she tore through wrapping paper, her joy infectious. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I'd done something right. But then I left her alone for 5 minutes. I was in the kitchen making breakfast when I realized how quiet the house had gotten. Too quiet. "Emma?" I called out, but there was no answer. My stomach knotted as I raced to her room. Her bed was empty. The window gaped open, snow piling on the floor like an accusing trail. The curtains flapped wildly as if trying to hold on to something already lost. On her pillow was the Santa hat from the second package. Beneath it, a note. "I'll take care of her now." My scream echoed through the house as I tore through every room, searching frantically. Emma was gone. I called the police, my voice barely coherent through the panic. They arrived within minutes and the search began immediately. By noon, the house swarmed with officers, search dogs, and volunteers. They combed the woods behind our house, canvassed the neighborhood, and set up roadblocks. But there was no sign of her. No footprints in the snow outside her window. No witnesses. Nothing. The man from the mall was my first suspect. I gave the police a detailed description, but when they reviewed the mall's security footage, he was nowhere to be found. It was as if he didn't exist. Now, every Christmas, I hang Emma's stocking by the fireplace, knowing it's an empty gesture. I'll never stop waiting for her, even if it takes forever. I just hope, wherever she is, she knows I never stopped loving her. People always underestimate isolation. Not the romanticized kind where a writer rents a cabin and finds inspiration. I'm talking about real isolation. The kind that creeps into your bones and makes you question the sound of your own breathing. The kind that turns silence into a threat. I should know. My name's Marcus. 38, divorced, no kids. A cybersecurity consultant who spends most of his time digging through other people's vulnerabilities. For me, Christmas wasn't a season. It was a speed bump in the middle of my workflow. My family was off in Florida, sipping drinks under palm trees. I stayed behind in Rochester, where my 2-story house sat in a quiet neighborhood surrounded by leafless maple trees and frost-coated lawns. It was perfect and peaceful. Until it wasn't. The first call came on December 15th. I remember the time, 12:17 a.m., because I was deep into a penetration test for a client. I had 3 monitors glowing in front of me, each one a window into someone else's digital life. When the phone rang, I almost ignored it. Late night calls usually meant spam or a panicked client who couldn't find their password. Static greeted me when I answered. Not the garbled noise of a bad cell connection, but something different. It sounded deliberate, like a faint hum of an old tape recorder. I hung up, chalking it up to a robocall. The second night, same time, same static. This time I noted the number. Local area code, Rochester. When I called it back, the line was dead. I blocked the number and went back to work, but something about it gnawed at me. By the third night, I was building a spreadsheet, tracking each call like a detective working a case. Different numbers, all local. No names or addresses attached. I tried to rationalize it. Spam calls, a prank maybe. But the rationalization started to crack on December 19th. That night, the static wasn't just noise anymore. Beneath it, I heard breathing. Slow, steady, close. I felt something shift in me. I've spent my career identifying threats, isolating them, neutralizing them. But this wasn't a line in malicious code I could dissect. It was personal. Whoever was on the other end of that line wasn't random. They knew me. I fortified my home the only way a cybersecurity professional could. The cameras at every entry point, and motion sensors in the hallways, and reinforced locks on all the doors. I set up my network monitoring that could trace any signal coming within 50 feet of my house. My home became a fortress. And still, the calls kept coming. By December 22nd, the static had been replaced by a voice. A man's voice, low and calm. I see you. Just 3 words, but they landed like a punch to the gut. The Rochester police didn't take me seriously. Could be a prank caller, the officer said, barely looking up from his clipboard. Unless they've made a threat or shown up at your property, there's not much we can do. The calls didn't stop. Neither did the breathing, the occasional chuckle, or the silence that felt heavier than the words. On Christmas Eve, it escalated. I found a candy cane on the hood of my car. It was wrapped in pristine plastic, untouched by the frost that had coated everything else. The security footage showed nothing. No one. Not even a flicker of movement. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room with the lights off, my phone in one hand and a baseball bat in the other. At 3 a.m., the phone rang again. This time, there were multiple voices. Whispering, laughing, saying my name like it was some kind of game. I snapped. I spent the next 12 hours chasing leads. Reverse lookups, IP traces, deep dives into databases. I combed through the logs of every number that had called me, cross-referencing them with local records. What I found made my stomach churn. Each number was linked to a missing person in the Rochester area. People who'd vanished without a trace, all within the last 10 years. All around Christmas. My house, my life, had somehow become the center of a pattern I couldn't explain. Christmas Day, 10 p.m., the phone rang again. This time I didn't answer. Instead, I let the call go to voicemail. When I played it back, there was no static, no breathing, just a single clear sentence. Come outside, Marcus. Every hair on my body stood on end. The cameras showed nothing. The yard was empty, the street silent. And I wasn't taking chances. I called the police again, and this time they sent a patrol car. And by the time the officer arrived, the candy cane was back. It was stuck to my front door. Could be some kids messing with you, the officer said, but even he didn't look convinced. He offered to drive around the neighborhood, and I didn't argue. By 2 a.m., the patrol car was gone, and I was alone again. Alone, except for the sound of footsteps outside my window. I didn't run to the door. I didn't turn on the lights. I sat in the dark, my hand gripping the baseball bat so tightly it hurt. Whoever was out there wasn't trying to break in. They were waiting. Waiting for what? The phone rang one last time. I see you, the voice said. Then, softer, almost like a whisper. Merry Christmas, Marcus. I stayed awake until dawn, but nothing else happened. No footsteps, no phone calls, no candy canes. Just the silence of a neighborhood waking up to open presents, completely unaware of the nightmare I'd been living. I don't know who it was. I don't know why they chose me. But I do know one thing. This isn't over. Let me set the scene for you. You're out on Route 16, heading west. There's not much out there. Just dead trees and the occasional coyote daring to trot across the blacktop. About 50 miles in, you'll see it. A crooked little sign half buried in the snow. Crossroads Motel. This is where I live. My name's Mike Larson. I own the place. I'm not saying it's anything special. The lobby smells like mothballs and burnt coffee. Half the rooms don't heat properly, and the paint on the walls flakes off like dead skin. But it's my home. Has been for 30 years. And in 30 years, I've seen some shit. You run a motel, you get all types. Truckers, runaways, weirdos who don't meet your eyes. But Christmas Eve 3 years ago, that's the one that keeps me up at night. And that's the story. It started like this, a reservation for room 12. I've got a love-hate thing with room 12. My grandfather built this place back in the 50s and told me that room was special. That's where it started, he'd say. Real cryptic. Like he wanted me to ask, but hoped I wouldn't. What started, Gramps? I asked once. He gave me a look like I'd stepped on his grave. The troubles. That's all he ever said. So when I saw the name J. Peterson pop up on the computer, it sent a tingle down my spine. The bad kind. It's like smelling something burning, but not knowing where it's coming from. I tried to shake it off. You tell yourself all kinds of things when you're alone in the middle of nowhere. It's nothing. A coincidence. Just another guest. But it wasn't. The snow was coming down hard that night, hammering the windows like an angry drunk. By 11:45, there were no cars in the lot. No headlights, no tire tracks. The reservation was still there, though. When the clock struck midnight, I swear the whole building sighed. Just a little shudder that ran up my spine and settled behind my eyeballs. Then came the footsteps. Not the clumsy, uneven clomp of boots on tile. No, these were measured, like the slow ticking of a clock. 1, 2, 3, pause. 1, 2, back, pause. I grabbed the master key. My hands were sweating, but I told myself it was just the heat from the old furnace. All lies. By the time I got to room 12, the hallway lights were flickering like some bad horror movie. I laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that comes out strangled, like choking on a bone. The door to room 12 was cold. Not its winter in Maine cold. Colder. Like touching a dead body. I unlocked it, and the first thing I noticed was how perfect everything looked. Bed made tight enough to bounce a quarter on, curtains drawn just so, not a single thing out of place. And then the scratching started. It came from the bathroom, long, deliberate strokes like fingernails on a blackboard. I took a step inside, then another. My shoes didn't squeak on the linoleum. They sounded muffled, like the room was swallowing the noise. Hello? My voice came out softer than I intended. The scratching stopped. When I opened the bathroom door, there was nothing there but my reflection in the mirror, staring back at me with wide, bloodshot eyes. Then, just as I turned to leave, I felt the whisper. It wasn't a sound. It was an event. It slid into my ear like smoke, curling its way into my brain and settling there, whispering two little words. Next year. I slammed the door and didn't stop running until I was back in my office. That's when I saw the computer screen. The reservation for J. Peterson? It wasn't there anymore. But the strangest part, the screen was cracked, split down the middle like a spider web. The next morning, I unearthed the old guest log from my grandfather's rusted filing cabinet. My hands trembled as I flipped through the brittle pages, yellowed with time. And there it was. J. Peterson, room 12, Christmas Eve. Year after year, going back to 1963. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of it pressing down on me like the building itself was watching. My grandfather's words echoed in my mind. The ground takes what it wants, and sometimes it gives something back. All those years I'd dismissed it as the ramblings of an old man. Now I understood. Room 12 wasn't just a room. It was something else. A place where the past and the present blurred, where the lines between us and whatever's out there didn't hold, and it wasn't done. That night I locked the door, nailed it shut, and hung a sign, out of order. But deep down I know it won't matter. Whatever's in there doesn't need an open door. This morning I checked the reservation system. Jane Peterson, room 12, Christmas Eve. I stared at the name, my hands cold and clammy. My grandfather used to say, the Crossroads Motel doesn't forget its guests. Now I think he was wrong. It doesn't keep guests. It keeps stories. And now, I'm afraid my story's next.